74th Constitutional Amendment Act. And this act is one of the most significant constitutional milestones that we have witnessed, which seeks to place urban governance firmly within the framework of democratic decentralization. It's just not an administrative reform, but it proposes to deepen democracy and bring government closer to the people.
CAG of India is the supreme audit institution. It's a constitutional position. It's a constitutional body that performs a very important function in serving democratic governance and accountability in India. But more importantly, a more proximate reason is that the CAG of India pioneered an audit of the implementation of the 74th Constitutional Amendment in 2020. And since then, these audits have been completed for over 20 states in India, and the audit reports placed before respective state legislative assemblies. It's important for us to use this occasion to reflect on what has worked well and what needs to be done to further strengthen local self-governance in India's cities going forward.
Why is decentralization critical for 20th century Indian cities as we are moving to developed India by 2047? Just the fact that there is no developed country in the world, democratic or otherwise, without an elected local government. And what do you mean by decentralization? As I mentioned, it is essentially democratic decentralization. It's got administrative, managerial, fiscal, governance, political elements. It is this what makes it a local government. Certainly, you can have a government which is for 21st century, a government which prevents alienation, which prevents submersion, which prevents marginalization. That's what we want. Make it very productive. If you want to be very productive, as the SDG says, none left behind. So if you don't want anybody to be left behind, we need the local government, where there is some kind of local public action and it addresses all this. And the biggest advantage, both theoretical and practical, is that they have a worm's eye view.
Mr. Vijayanand mentioned that there is no developed country without elected local governments. Yes, I don't think there is any developed country without empowered local self-governments, particularly in cities. Not only that, in my experience, India, even in our own peer group, if you take countries like Philippines, Indonesia, South Africa, Brazil, Mexico, India has the weakest system for local self-governance. This is not an agenda only for transparency, citizen participation and democracy, which are all very worthwhile causes, but this is a development agenda. You cannot achieve economic growth or environment sustainability or equity for the women, the urban poor, the differently abled, the elderly, etc., without empowered local governments.
The Municipal Corporation of Delhi is being functioned as per the DMC Act, Delhi Municipal Corporation Act. And the primary responsibility of Municipal Corporation of Delhi is the sanitation, providing the proper infrastructure, providing the proper public health, community well-being, regulation of advertisements, solid waste management, engineering landfills, collecting the revenue, the property tax, the toll tax. So it is a huge responsibility. There are two parallel governments in any corporation. One is run by the bureaucrats and the other is run by the public representative. So important thing is the coordination between bureaucracy as well as the public representative and the officers and the staff which are working in the corporation. This is the primary, that is the most important thing which is required to run any corporation effectively. Term of a mayor. Yes, this is the biggest problem which even I face. Only 6 states are there, comprising of the 393 municipalities where direct elections are being held and where the mayor has a 5-year of term. So whenever the policies decisions are made, and when the implementation and the policy making, the term that the gap between the two mayors, that is a major setback, and it's very difficult for its implementation, for its effective implementation.
And Constitution is very clear. It says institutions of self-government is even more powerful than a local government. And of course, the characteristics we know of decentralization: citizen engagement leading to participation, functional clarity, and very, very important thing which the Indian local governments can lack: autonomy. Even if it's carved out space within this area, you are autonomous. The Delhi mayor, former mayor is there. Very few people know that this is the autonomy I have. Some may work, some may not work. It's not this thing. Then, a very important point I wanted to highlight is that trust and respect you give to an elected local government. I call it soft devolution. This alone can make a local government function. Nothing. All others you can omit, but I trust a local government say, these are the functions we want you to perform. They will certainly perform in any part of India.
In 2022, there was a time when there was a lot of gap between when there was no public representative in Delhi. So that 8 to 10 months, I think the corporation could not perform up to the mark.
I'd like to say 4 things. 1, the Supreme Court of India has to take suo motu cognizance of delays in local government elections in India. They themselves have passed some excellent orders in the past enforcing elections to local governments in various states in response to court cases, but they now have to take suo motu cognizance of continuing delays in local government elections. As you are aware, CAG audits have observed it. Our own studies show that at one point in time, 3-4 years ago, there were about 1,600 to 1,700 local governments, constituting more than 30% of the total number of local governments in India which did not have elected government. So that needs to change.
While we look at this constitutional amendment, we are always looking back to see how much has got devolved, how much institutions have been created, so on and so forth. But in this self-review, we should not forget that there are many good practices which have got embedded over these 3 decades.
Government bodies are rising to these challenges from, very well-known instances such as bodies raising municipal bonds and money from the market, which the CAG referred to, in an effort to enhance their revenue streams. And there are some very micro best practices, like Jabalpur Municipal Corporation has used their condemned buses. They've converted them into ladies' toilets on the banks of the Narmada, because the pilgrims, especially the ladies, have a great problem when they come for pilgrimage. Where do they go? So these kind of at the very macro level and the very micro level, there are best practices across the country. They need to be shared.
The 73rd and 74th Amendment are called as twins. They came into force in the same year, 1992, just a difference of about a month or so. But the 73rd Amendment, ironically, we say that villages are behind in compared to cities. But I think in terms of governance, the villages seem to have gone far ahead. And by now, there have been like 6 national level assessments of how the various states are performing on the 73rd Amendment. At the same time, there is no assessment for the 74th Amendment.
I have 3 points for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. 1, publish a devolution index for urban local governments on the lines of what the rural counterparts have done, with the support of Indian Institute of Public Administration, the National Institute of Rural Development, etc. Basis that, please push for replicable best practices with active intermediation. Not just best practices in solid waste management and water supply, but push for replicable best practices in decentralization. When I say push for, I mean actively intermediate that. Socialize that with states, incentivize states to adopt them. Second point, very important point, is to strengthen the Department of Local Self-Government within the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. That's been defunct for far too long. This is an important agenda. It is not enough for the union government to only run centrally sponsored schemes. They will have to strengthen local governments as a national agenda. The third thing, Mr. Vijayanand alluded to it, is to ensure that all centrally sponsored schemes in cities are necessarily tied to devolution-related reform agendas.
The MOUD has to learn from MORD and MOPR. First is in how to deal with state governments. It's all government of India. And then use of centrally sponsored schemes to push decentralization. BRGF created DPCs in India. And capacity building, we have a National Institute of Rural Development, State Institute of Rural Development, we have thought of this thing. And there is something called GPDP, using the Finance Commission, whatever resources you have, to push planning. And there's a E-Gram Swaraj in this, which has basic data of all panchayats. Then pushing social accountability through social audit, which at least the ministries have been doing. Now they're doing localizing SDGs, local action against climate change. These are all being pushed by the Ministry of Panchayat Raj and all that. And awards, best practices documentation, best practices being awarded at the national level from 2.5 lakh panchayats. It's very easy to get best practices from 4,500 thing. And concept of national resource organization and a state of municipalities reporting.
Political agendas are very often public agendas, which means there has to be greater and greater number of citizens who not only complain about quality of life in cities, but are able to ask for systems reforms, are able to ask for decentralization and empowerment of local self-governments as an important pathway to better quality of life in cities. Today, we are still some time away from it because I feel many citizens in our cities continue to believe that a higher level of government can do a better job. So there is a lot of work to do for us to get more and more citizens behind the agenda, that at least you are able to hold your local government to much greater accountability and far more proximity. We need to create a coalition of civil society organizations, a coalition of councillors and mayors, a coalition of civic leaders in neighborhoods who ask for systems reforms. But one thing is clear, we cannot accomplish the goal of Vikasit Bharat 2047 or the agenda of a developed India which is able to raise economic growth, eliminate poverty, and but at the same time balance environment, sustainability and equity without empowered local governments. That is a certainty that we will have to convey today to everybody listening and everybody who is likely to listen. Thank you.